What is up, guys, and welcome back to Electrix Moto. Today, I'm going to tell you everything that you need to know about the Throne Serpent. All right, so today what we're gonna do is just talk about the specifics of the bike, some of the things that I think that you should know, then we'll give you our impressions. We just got this thing unboxed and put together, so we have not had a chance to ride it yet. There's tons of snow and ice outside, but there are some things that we've seen on this bike that we see are different from other bikes, and we think that you should know them if you're interested in the Throne Serpent. Okay, so the most important things that we think are important for you to know are 10,000 watts of peak power, 460 Newton meters of torque, Eco, High, and Sport mode. You have an 80-mile range in this battery on Eco. We have not done a range test yet. I'm sure there are range tests out there. We also have a 60-mile-an-hour top speed, which is really close to being in line with the eRide Pro SS 2.0, as well as the MX-5. You have a 72-volt, 40-amp-hour battery sitting right here where they all go. And you have reverse and a kill switch. Those are the basics of this bike. Those are the things that you're going to need to know in order to compare it to other bikes. Now let's get into the things that we've seen on this bike and what we think of it as an overall before we get to ride it. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about the screen is just the way it lights up. I think it's pretty cool that it does this. The eRide Pro has something kind of similar, but you'll see up in this corner where you have blinking flashers. That is because there is the opportunity to put a kit on this bike that allows you to have blinkers. It is controlled by the thumb switch on the left-hand side of the handlebars. You could go left, you could go right, press it in the center, and it turns it off. Now, over on the right side of the handlebars is probably the coolest feature about this bike that's totally different, and this is the side lights, and it's also a down light. So when you press that, the side lights on the bike come on, and then the down lights will show up on the ground. No other bikes have this. I know it doesn't do anything for performance, but it's just a cool thing to have. You have your brights right here on your thumb switch. You have your kill switch up top, and you have your power modes over here in the yellow button. So just like most bikes, this bike comes with all of the little controls that you need to make the bike operate or to make it run a little bit better. Now, you do have .4 brakes up top. So continuing with the brakes, you have a 4-piston caliper and you have a 200-millimeter rotor, both front and rear. The chain that you get is a 428 chain with a 51-tooth sprocket in the rear. That is overall the bike in a nutshell. Now, I want to talk to you about the things that we've noticed on this bike. We do believe this is a good value bike and it fits in with the market with the eRide Pro 2.0 as well as the MX-5. But we did notice a couple of things that I'm not gonna say we absolutely love because we don't absolutely love it, and that's what we're gonna go into now. All right, so one thing that's really cool about this bike before we get into the things we don't really love is the way that this battery is held in by this bracket. It's different than any other bike. It's not the easiest thing to assemble and to get to use, but it does work very well to keep this battery stationary and stable inside the compartment of the frame. And then you have this unique style of battery latch that actually latches the battery or the battery cable down to the battery and holds that tight. A lot of companies don't have that. The problem with this is if you're taking this battery out frequently, this is gonna break eventually. It just is, and I wish that it wasn't there because I don't think it's necessary, but that's just my personal opinion. All right, so our gripes about this bike are things that most people change anyway, so it's not a really big deal. But in my opinion, it feels like this handlebar stem and all of these components, I know it's a high grade aluminum, it just doesn't feel good. Also, another thing to note, this red wire right here comes out of your brake. This is your brake sensor. If you plan on doing any wheelies or really riding this bike in dirt of any kind, keep this brake sensor disconnected. Otherwise, every time you touch your brake, it's gonna cut the motor. So we just leave ours disconnected because it's really not even worth having on there. So let's talk about the controls. The grips and the controls that come on this bike I think are the worst that we've seen. Again, this is something that you're going to change anyways, I'm sure, so it's not a big deal. You're going to put on different grips, something that you like, but these just don't feel well made. I feel like there were some concessions made on this bike, which is what has to happen on every bike in order to have like the fancy light on the ground, the nice looking screen, the upgraded KKE suspension. There are some things that they had to skimp on in order to bring this bike together at the price point that it is. So it makes sense that it's where it's at, but those are the things that I'm just not in love with on this bike. But the thing I do love on this bike, personally, is the front fender is more of a textured black versus like a gloss black. Those gloss black fenders take scratches immediately, and then they kind of just look like crap pretty much right after you start riding the bike. So having these more matte style fenders, I don't know how well they'll hold up, but I feel like this is a better option for these bikes, and it gives it a good matte finish versus a gloss finish, which personally, if you're asking me, that is something that I like a lot.
So the last thing I kind of want to talk about here is the chain. You do have a heavy duty chain, and it looks like it's not an O-ring chain, which is a good thing because we usually change these out right away if they have the O-rings in them. It's said that it takes a little bit of power away from the bike. I don't know if that's true or not, but these chains look pretty beefy coming from the factory. And then the last part, which everybody changes, is the foot pegs. These foot pegs are pretty much useless if you're doing any type of riding other than just sitting on your bike and riding through the city. So that's something that you're going to need to change right away. These are not going to cut the cheese for any type of hardcore riding.
All right, so one more thing before I let you guys go. Just like most E-motos, especially in this size and in this market, you have the 1919 front and rear wheel, and they both these tires are CST tires, which is very common. It's nothing out of the ordinary for these bikes. They are an 8119 in the back and a 7119 in the front, which is what everybody does. So not really much to mention there, but I figured it's just good for you to know. All right, so that's all the information we have that we think is important for you on the Throne Serpent. If you guys have any questions about this bike or any bike that we have in the shop, please just leave us a comment. We will also leave a discount code in the description for you to save 5% on any bikes or parts that you see on our website, and I will see you guys on the next one.